Hi there, welcome to this build of King Kombat 3. Now, I'm calling this King Kombat 3 because this is the third one I've built. But this one is going to be a little bit different because I'm putting in a PAW, a Progress Aero Works 19 twin ball race diesel engine. I've been wanting to build a diesel version of this for a long time. Now this is a building blog, so it's not a detailed build series. I have done one in the past and you'll find that on my YouTube site in the playlist. In fact, I'll put a link below to the playlist for that. Now I'm building this from a great set of plans that I downloaded from the Outer Zone website, and this is the second sort of building blog, so it's kind of an update of how I'm getting on with this. And you can see this is pretty advanced, and I've just put on the last bit of sheeting on this front edge. At the end of the last video there was some deliberation. I couldn't decide whether to, how big to cut the slot for the fuel tank, which I'm going to sit in that kind of leading edge round about there. And I decided that it'd be easier, neater, to put on the whole sheet and then cut the hole in, rather than try to cut it and weaken it, the sheeting, and have it possibly split while I'm sticking that on. I've got the elevons hinged and tried those. That's all working great. The next job I've got to do is I've got the cap strips to put on here. Now I've got that sheeting on, and now I've got this sheeting on here and I've got the line there. I can put on the sheeting that makes up the back, and it's got the holes in for the two servos for the elevons, and we can start to make the hatch up here for the radio gear, get the servo connected for that diesel engine, and the wingtips I've got to do as well. So I've got plenty to do, but as you can see this is looking pretty advanced, and I think in this video I'm certainly going to get it ready, I think, for covering, hopefully. But we'll come back and have an update very soon. Well, I've really been cracking on with this now, and I'm just about to put the final piece of sheeting on, but I thought it'd be worth just having a closer look of what we've done so far. Well, the first thing that's apparent is I've cut the hole in for the fuel tank. We'll have a closer look at that in a minute. And we can see there's a flexible snake here that comes through that kind of fuel tank bay, through the leading edge, and to a servo at the back. I've had that connected to the engine, I've had the engine mounted, and that's really nice linkage there at the front, just in the right place. I've mounted the servo on its side at a slight angle so that it's nicely in line with this flexible snake. I've still got that linkage to do yet, and I found it best to mount the servo on its side, and it's just held down with this strap at the moment. But I'm going to put some Velcro, some on the sticky Velcro, some on the servo, some on the strap, and then that will hold it really secure so that it can't move at all. Because at the moment, if you force it, it can move it sideways just slightly. In fact, it's not moving now, but it was earlier. So we'll make sure that's nice and secure. So the fuel bay, or the fuel tank bay. If we put in a little bit of foam, just in the bottom first, and we just slot that in and just tuck that down, and then we've got our 2-ounce fuel tank, and I've put some fuel line on it just so we can see it does actually work. Oh, and it's worth pointing out that after I cut the leading edge, I've just doubled this up along there, and I've doubled it up on the underside there as well. And I've on that piece going that way, underneath this sheeting, the grain runs that way, so it's a cross grain, so it's made this a lot stronger, so hopefully that won't break. But now if we're careful, we can just slot this fuel tank in, and it's a little bit fiddly, but it will go in, and we just have to tease the hose down. There we go, and you can see now that that fits in there really nice, and I can pack some foam around this on the top and the sides, just little pieces, to make sure that we insulate it a little bit from vibration, but it doesn't move. Still need to work out exactly the lines for the fuel hose. It might be I take one of them out the front, but I'll probably just bring them out. We'll see about that. That's still got to be decided. So the next job now is to get this sheeting on the back here, and I've been threatening to do this for ages, but I think we've got to the point now where we're going to do that. I've got a slot here for the servo cable to come through, and I've put a slot there, let me just turn that round, and here, so that we can thread the cable through there from the other servo, which is mounted here. So I'll get that on. I've also done the cap strips, and then we're going to make up these, or get these wingtips put on. We just stick this on nice and square in the line with the centre of the cord, and then we've got some bracings to go on, and then we're more or less done, I think. But anyway, we'll get on and do that, and then we'll come back and have a look. I've just lined this up now, and I thought it'd be worth showing you how I'm doing that. I've just got 2 square blocks, and I'm just holding those and getting this central rib for the tip just nice and central. I have already tacked this, if you wonder why it's not moving, but you can see it's nice and square with these blocks, and it's nicely in line with the centre of the cord. So now I put on just a little bit front and back just to make sure it was right, and now I'm going to CA that properly. So I just thought I'd show you a nice easy way of getting that nice and square, as well as getting it central. So now I can just run some CA along here, and now we've got to do the webs to make this a nice and strong tip, a nice strong tip that's nicely profiled. Well, I think it's definitely time to do an update on this, because it's almost there now. There's very little to do. You can see I've got the wing tips on. I mean, there's still some fairly big blocks here that all need trimming down and profiling, so it looks really nice. But we've got the bits of balsa on there, and it is just a case of profiling. The underside is all done. I think it probably was last time we had a look. I've been working on the hatch for the radio gear, and I've decided to make that slightly smaller, and I've just boxing it in a little bit, or sheeting it in a little bit, and that's going to make the hatch a lot smaller than it would have been. And it also gives me a permanent place to be able to screw in the on-off switch for the radio gear, rather than what I was going to do was having it in the lid so it kind of comes away with the lid. It'll be permanently there, and I think that's a much better solution. And we can also, if we want, put a battery under that, because there's quite a space under there, and we can slide that right forward or right backwards. So we're not kind of losing any footprint, we're just making the hatch smaller and more user-friendly because of the switch. I've still got the slots to cut in for the fins, and I'm going to do that once I've got this piece of sheeting put on. One final thing I should have said earlier, inside the fuel bay here, I've actually fuel proofed all that, and I did it before I put the sheeting on. And I am going to do a little bit of fuel proofing around the edge and around the engine mounts once I've got it finished, just to make sure that it's really fuel proof and we're not getting any oil soaked in to the balsa. I think that is probably, I've got one last thing to do. I need to cut a piece of balsa a little bit like this, but not this, and to go on there and to come out as far as the engine mounts are going to be. These need trimming just a little bit, but this is like a strengthening piece that goes on there and strengthens those engine mounts. And I haven't got any 1/2 inch balsa, so I've stuck a couple of pieces together with PVA, and I'm just waiting till tomorrow for that to go to set and glue together, and then we can get this finished. So I'll get this finished and we'll come back and have a look at the finished item, and then all we've got to do is get this thing sanded off and covered. But anyway, we'll have a look once we've got the construction finished. Well, you can see by this now, and probably the smile on my face, that the construction of this is finished. I think it's fair to say it's completely finished now. There's still a lot of sanding, a lot of profiling these wing tips, around the engine mount, the leading edge, and just making sure it's all really nice for covering. But that's going to be part of the next video, along with the covering and the setting up. But it's really exciting to get this done. And we've got the hatch there, and we can take a closer look at that now, how that works. So we've just got a couple of 3mm dome head screws to remove to get access to this compartment, and we're only going to need access when we actually want to do some charging of the battery. We're not going to need access at the airfield because we're going to have the switch here and we can fill the fuel tank there. Now when we just pull this off, we've got a couple of lugs on the bottom here that just hook under this piece of 1/4 inch square balsa, and we've got the bolts that go down into a couple of captive nuts just in the underside there. Hopefully you can just see them sticking through. So it's a really simple design and easy to use, and like I say, it's not as if we're going to need access for this at the airfield, which is really good. Now I've got the fins slotted in. They're not glued in, and they will only be glued in when I've got all of this covered. If I do it now, it's just causing myself a big headache, as is the elevons. We won't get these hinged, and well, they're hinged now, but we won't get them glued in until we've got those covered. So fitting these will be, you know, the fins and the elevons will be one of the very last tasks. But I am really excited to start to get this cleaned up, sanded, and to start thinking about the covering. And I've got some ideas for a design, but I haven't quite bottomed it out yet. The one thing I do need to do is trim the engine mount, the front here. It's about 1 inch too long, but at the moment I quite like it because it's something to hold when I'm sanding this and profiling it. I think it's going to be useful to have that a little bit longer. We've mounted the engine, and we can just got the engine here, and you just get an idea of how that's going to look. And I think it's quite exciting to get this with a diesel engine on it. And as I said before, I'm going to be making an exhaust that comes to the back of the wing to throw some of that oil away, hopefully. And I've said this before, but it would be so good having the exhaust coming over the top, because on previous wings I've always had it coming underneath, and as I'm launching it, as I've said, you sometimes get hit with a jet of oil. So, but anyway, I'm going to draw this video to a close now, and I hope you found it interesting, the development of this King Kombat flying wing. And please come back and see how we get on in the next video, pulling all this together, or at least profiling it, sanding, covering it, and then setting it all up. So it's going to be really exciting to see how this looks. Thanks very much for watching.